For decades, we, the devoted, the patient, the ones who see the world as a tapestry of hexes and supply lines, have had our titans. Games like Civilization and Victoria have been but a new challenger has entered the arena, clad in pixel art and armed with what feels like a 200-page manual's worth of complexity. Imperial Ambitions, released July 13, 2026, is a dense, turn-based 4X game that promises deep economic simulation and ruthless warfare. The question is, does it have what it takes to actually dethrone the giants? In this deep dive review, we're going to break down every core mechanic, from the dizzying production chains to the morally murky world of espionage, to see if a new king has finally been crowned for strategy fans. At first glance, Imperial Ambitions might look familiar. Largely the work of solo developer aoiti, it's a turn-based grand strategy game that places you at the head of a European superpower during the Age of Discovery and Renaissance. The goal, as ever, is to build an empire. You'll discover and colonize the world, manage your people, and fight for dominance. But to call it just another map painter would be a profound understatement. This game is a love letter to a bygone era of strategy, to games like Imperialism 2 and Sid Meier's Colonization, where complexity wasn't a dirty word. The core gameplay loop is deceptively simple: discover, colonize, allocate labor, monopolize markets, and fight. But under each of these pillars lies a staggering depth that separates it from its more mainstream cousins. Where Civilization abstracts, Imperial Ambitions specifies. This isn't about just placing a mine on a hill, it's about understanding that you need iron to make cast iron, which you then need to make the very tools required to build the iron mine in the first place, creating a fascinating logistical puzzle from turn 1. The game boasts around 40 distinct resources, each part of intricate production chains that feed your capital and your armies. You don't just build a merchant, you physically dispatch them on trade routes. They must travel, seeking to meet the specific needs of towns that don't belong to you, all while navigating boycotts and a volatile black market. It deliberately refuses to hold your hand. The tutorial, as many early players have noted, barely scratches the surface of what's going on. This is a game that throws you in the deep end, expecting you to learn by doing, to fail, to see your empire crumble, and to come back with a better understanding. It's a design philosophy that will be immediately familiar to anyone who's ever lost the weekend to a Paradox game, but it also erects a significant barrier to entry for the uninitiated. Now, let's get to the heart of the machine, the system that will either make you fall head over heels in love with this game or run screaming in terror: the economy. If you're a fan of Victoria's intricate market simulations, prepare to meet its intense, pixelated cousin. Imperial Ambitions treats economics not as a sidebar, but as the central nervous system of your empire. The 40+ resources aren't just for show, they are deeply interconnected. Coal is needed for military unit production. Iron for tools and exotic goods from across the sea are needed to satisfy the evolving demands of your populace. Your population is divided into 5 distinct social classes, from slaves to masters, and they aren't just static numbers. Citizens can climb a dynamic social ladder, and their needs change with their education and status. This creates a fascinating game of social engineering. A food shortage leads to hunger, which lowers efficiency and can spiral into starvation. Starving citizens make for unreliable workers and disloyal subjects. Your people can develop traits based on their experiences and living conditions, forcing you to manage your society with a level of detail that feels more like a social simulation than a traditional 4X. An empire flush with cash can still rot from within due to wealth disparity and social unrest. This is where the controversial choices come into play. The game doesn't shy away from the darker side of imperialism. It presents you with morally questionable but mechanically viable solutions to complex problems. Do you enforce a boycott on a rival, or do you use your agents to smuggle goods past their blockade? Do you invest in infrastructure to get resources from the far corners of your empire, or do you take the quicker path by exploiting an underground economy? This constant series of interesting and often grim trade-offs is where the economic model truly shines, creating a narrative of difficult choices and their far-reaching consequences. For all its economic depth, Imperial Ambitions does not neglect the X for exterminate. But if you're coming in expecting to build a massive doom stack and right-click your way to victory, you're in for a rude awakening. Combat here is a thoughtful, tactical affair that will appeal to veterans of classic war games. The game completely redesigns how armies operate on a campaign map to feel more like real-world military units. Large armies move in column formation, which is powerful but cumbersome and tactically demanding to prepare for battle. You can split regiments from the main army for flanking maneuvers, small tactical excursions, or to sneak behind enemy lines and create a crossfire. This single mechanic forces a level of battlefield awareness rarely seen in the genre. Leaving a gap in your frontline isn't just a minor mistake, it's an open invitation for disaster. Battles themselves hinge on more than just numbers and technology. Formations, positioning, and logistics are paramount. The developer has stated that anyone who enjoys the Napoleonic era of warfare will find the tactical thinking here much more rewarding. You aren't just trying to inflict casualties, you're trying to break the enemy's will. Your own forces are subject to the same pressures. For example, hungry soldiers will start battles with fewer action points. This system transforms warfare from a simple game of chess into a complex psychological struggle, where a well-positioned, well-fed, and high-morale force can triumph against a numerically superior but disorganized foe. It's a thinking general's battlefield, and it's one of the game's strongest features. Beyond the ledger books and the battlefields lies the Shadow Empire, a world of espionage and subversion driven by a fascinating agent-centric system. In Imperial Ambitions, diplomacy and clandestine operations are not conducted through abstract menus. They require presence. You must physically move your agents, like gentlemen, priests, and merchants, across the map to get things done. Each agent type has a unique role. A gentleman can travel to a rival capital to negotiate a ceasefire, a priest can work to bolster loyalty or convert a populace, and your merchant can orchestrate lucrative trade deals. But there are also agents for the game's darker mechanics, like the Shadow Master, who can foment insurrections and organize crime syndicates to cripple an empire without a single shot being fired. This agent-driven gameplay adds another layer of strategic depth and personal connection to the world. It's no longer just England declares war on France. It's your general, a character with their own history and traits, leading an army into battle. It's your explorer, braving the unknown to chart new lands. And it's your spy, lurking in an enemy city, waiting for the right moment to strike. This system makes the world feel alive and your actions feel tangible. It also means that even in times of peace, the war never truly stops, it just moves into the shadows. Diplomacy itself is driven by a grudge system, where aggressive actions increase tension that can automatically lead to war, making every diplomatic slight a potential spark for a global conflict. So, we return to the question we posed at the beginning. Has Imperial Ambitions dethroned the kings of strategy gaming? The answer, like the game itself, is complex. For the casual strategy player, for the person who enjoys the streamlined, accessible progression of a modern civilization game, the answer is a resounding no. This game is not for you. Its pixel art graphics are functional rather than spectacular. Its interface is dense and overflowing, and its refusal to simplify its systems makes the learning curve a sheer, unforgiving cliff. It's a game you have to earn, and many will not have the patience for it. As is common with such complex games at launch, some users have noted it needs more polish, better balancing, and a more comprehensive tutorial. But, for a specific type of player, this game is a revelation. If you are a veteran of the genre, if you hear names like Imperialism 2 and immediately feel a sense of nostalgia, if you believe that the soul of grand strategy lies in its complexity, then Imperial Ambitions might just be the holy grail you've been waiting for. Its economic and social depth is astonishing for a project that is largely a solo effort. The tactical combat is a refreshing change of pace, and the agent-centric gameplay adds a unique and compelling layer of intrigue. Imperial Ambitions doesn't dethrone civilization, because it isn't trying to sit on the same throne. Civilization is the popular monarch, ruling over a vast and accessible kingdom. Imperial Ambitions is the new brooding prince of a niche, but fiercely loyal city-state. It is a demanding, morally murky, and intellectually exhausting machine of a game that treats imperialism not as a grand epic, but as a cruel and complicated engine. It has clearly found its audience, earning a positive rating on Steam from its early players. So, my final verdict is this. If you are a veteran 4X or Grand Strategy fan who appreciates deep mechanics, complex production chains, and tactical warfare, you should absolutely check this game out. It is a love letter to the genre and a potential cult classic in the making. If you are a more casual player looking for a relaxing empire builder, I would advise you to perhaps watch some gameplay videos first to see if its brand of brutal complexity is for you. Imperial Ambitions is one of the most exciting, challenging, and rewarding strategy games to be released in years, provided you are its target audience. It is a testament to the fact that depth, complexity, and a little bit of old-school punishment can still create an utterly engrossing experience. But that's just my analysis after dozens of hours managing trade routes and frontline gaps. I want to know what you think. Is this level of complexity a welcome challenge or a frustrating barrier? And what other games out there scratch that same itch for deep systems-heavy strategy? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, consider liking and subscribing for more reviews of the most interesting and ambitious strategy games out there. Thank you for watching.